So to lead us through the next segment, I have the pleasure to introduce again Anna Catalano, one of my very good friends, honorary co-founder of the KIN, and just an all-around phenomenal person. Anna Catalano.
Yes, Rob, sorry, you are not the next generation anymore. I hate to tell you that. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm glad we have most of the group back in here. This is the third year in a row we've done this. I've always believed, actually this is the result of brainstorming between me and my good friend Peter Bryant, who we had this idea like 3 years ago, and we said, how the heck do we get Rob to let us do this, right? We've always believed that when it comes to leadership, it's very important for us to hear from the next generation, and we need to get their voices here in the room. So for the third year, we've done this. I'm going to invite the three students to come up as I tell you a little bit about how I did this year. Went to 3 different schools. One was easy because one was Peter's daughter. Go ahead and have a seat. Peter's daughter, Elyse, who attends school in California. And the other 2 I found here in Chicago. So I'm going to actually ask each of them to come up and give you their thoughts. The prompt that I gave them this year was, given that the topic is foresight, what do you see as the most important topics that leaders today need to anticipate as they think about the future, and how do you see yourself as a part of that? So I've asked them each to give us about 5 minutes of their thoughts, and hopefully we'll have time for one question in a little short Q&A. Okay? The first up is it Nia? You're first, okay. Nia Robinson, go ahead and go to the podium, because we're short on time here. Nia is completing her junior year at Jones College Prep. Is that right? Here in Chicago, in the city. She is founder of an organization at school called the Key Club, which is dedicated to service for the community. And for each of these people, I'm going to name one Kinney, and I want to make sure meets her, or she gets a chance to meet. And I don't know if he's in the room. Tom Toohey. Is Tom in the room? When Tom gets back in the room, everybody make sure, I want to make sure that Nia meets Tom today, because I think they have an awful lot in common. I'd love for her to meet him. So, floor's yours.
Hi guys. At 17 years old, when someone asks me what college I want to go to or what I want to be when I grow up, I can easily answer the question. And to be frank, I don't know if they're more surprised with my answer or more surprised that someone my age can even answer the question. I'll say something like, well, I'll go to school until I get my PhD in economics, and then I'll be an economics professor at some Ivy League school, and then I'll work for the Economic Advisory Council for the president, and then I'll run for president in 2054. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but the even crazier thing is a lot of my friends have extreme ideas like this one too. I have a friend who plans on working for Google as the CEO, and another friend who plans on working at the ACLU for the next big case, and another friend who's planning on becoming the next Mozart or even Kanye West. So why is it that so many people my age find it so much easier to plan out their future? Because every day we see notifications and posts on social media that spur our interest about what our future could be like. But the reality is, a lot of the jobs that the future leaders of America might think they want now won't even be available in that form by the time they go into the workforce. And even more so, a lot of the jobs that my friends and I will probably have haven't even been created yet. I mean, how many kids or teenagers do you know that say that they want to be a mechanic or designer for flying cars? But in 50 or maybe 20 years, we're going to need those jobs too. With rapid urbanization spreading across the globe and the future technology breakthrough, what will the job market be like by 2050? Will I even be able to run for president anymore? Will they give that job off to some super creative robot? Hey, every day, companies are working on expanding our machines, technology, and infrastructure, and jobs are adapting. Leaders right now need to understand that the future of the workforce will be the survival of the adaptable. And that is why one of the most important things leaders need to anticipate about the future is the importance of open-mindedness. Now, no doubt that's important now, but in the future, this trait will not only help leaders deal with the inevitable changes that will occur in the structure of the workforce, but they'll also help leaders deal with ways to move their business and company with the tide of that change. Another thing leaders need to anticipate about the future of work is how important it's going to be to embrace social responsibility. Our world is becoming ever increasingly globalized, and There will be less and less respect for businesses that do not address or talk about the social problems in society, and for the ones who insensitively do so. Just like it's important, especially right now for America to unite, it is incredibly important for leaders to be able to unite their employees as the world continues to seem bigger and bigger and people's political opinions continues to seem stronger and stronger. The social climate is not going to change soon. In fact, there will always be problems in society, in the past, in the present, and to the future. But in our future, with social media becoming a larger and larger platform, the social tensions will become more public and cause more doubt. And so leaders need to understand the strength of social responsibility so that they can move their businesses and teams to be ones that are admirable and respectful to the people in their community and to the people in their country. As I focus on my future, I hope that I can be a part of what this world looks like by being engaged in conversations about how to adapt to long-term change. I hope that I can be on the front of the lines of the future workforce and help foster results in my community that benefit the public good. I hope that I can help establish practices wherever I go that not only focus on my personal responsibility, but the greater social responsibility, so that I can help build up an environment, team, and community that I am proud that the world can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elyse Bryant. Elyse is completing her sophomore year at St. Margaret's Episcopal High School in Orange County. She is, one thing, I have a little bit of trivia for everybody. Elyse is a nationally renowned Irish dancer. She is a competitive Irish dancer. So that's one thing that you wouldn't know about her. I don't think she's going to do a dance for us today, so I want to make sure you know that. Go ahead, it's all yours.
Thanks, Anna. I am so delighted to have been given this opportunity to speak to you all at KIN today. I'm going to be sharing my experience and opinion regarding competition in and outside of our daily lives and how it could have an increasingly negative impact on our futures. Don't get me wrong, I love competition, and the feeling that you get when you win is like no other. But we need to stop being so competitive in every aspect of our lives when it's not necessary. Unnecessary competition is driving our communities apart and creating a mindset that is never going to go anywhere positive. Many of the big issues our world is facing today will never be solved by trying to outsmart others with better solutions, but by collaborating and merging many ideas into one. Now, where does this problem start? I see it amongst people in school. They compete against each other regarding GPA, popularity, and even looks. For people at such a young age to be worrying about being better than their peers poses a problem for their futures. As a competitive dancer, I know the world of competition can be very fierce, and when the competitive mindset follows you, it's never going to be positive. So, while Irish dance is mainly a solo sport, you're a part of a dance school that should push and support you towards success, right? Well, after dancing for almost 10 years, I can confirm that that's sadly not true at all dance schools. At my previous school, kids would do whatever they could to put other people down in order to gain somewhat of an advantage. The thing that concerns me the most was how some of the teachers would hear what was going on, and instead of stopping this form of sabotage, they would actually join in. If this is how our mentors are acting, how can you expect us to be any different? At this moment, what we have is a culture where we feel we have to make people believe that we are better than everybody else in order to reach your goals. Now that we know what problem we are facing as a community, what can we do to change it? We often look to our leaders and mentors for answers, and we often see an attitude of, if our leaders don't act in a positive way, then why should we? What I would like to suggest that is, in fact, we are all leaders in one way or another. I can see multiple instances where I could consider myself a leader. For example, I'd like to think I am one of my sister's biggest mentors, and sometimes younger dancers like to look up to me for guidance in their dance careers. As I think about my role in society, I challenge you all today to think about where you see yourself as being in a leadership position. Now, this may not always be obvious, so dig a little bit deeper and discover where you can create a positive impact on the people around you. Once you figure out where you stand, try to model the behavior that encourages a collaborative and supportive mindset outside of those situations that require a competitive mindset. While it may seem daunting and almost impossible to change the course that we've been going down for years, I believe that change can start with just one person. As I think about this challenge, I begin to wonder about what role I can play beyond my local community. One aspect is social media. Now, we all know that teenagers are typically glued to their phones 24/7, so I'm going to be using social media as a way to promote positivity and inclusivity instead of a way to compare and be better than others. And lastly, as I will begin the transition to college in a few years, I'm going to be using this time to create a lasting impact on my school regarding the difference between healthy and unnecessary competition, and how if we are all more supportive and collaborative, we can solve almost any problem put in our paths. Thank you.
Thank you, Elyse. Last but not least, we have Yourtana Sulaiman. Yourtana is completing her, or has completed, congratulations, it's this week, completed her junior year at Niles North High School in Skokie. And she is Syrian born, but moved to the United States when she was very young. And Yourtana is going to talk about art today.
Alrighty. So, in his novel Diversity Explosion, William H. Frey predicts that by the year 2050, over 50% of the US population will consist of racial minorities. Today, a whopping 65%, give or take, of the US population is white. When we look at the overwhelming whiteness of the popular media today, it seems representative of this majority, and in turn, some may say that the lack of diversity in the media makes sense because minorities only make up about 35% of the country. But that's where we're wrong. It doesn't make sense. The fact that there are a limited number of roles granted to people of color in the film and television industry may seem proportional in terms of our population, but in terms of the role's content, it is wildly disproportionate. A majority of the time, these roles are merely racial stereotypes or generally insubstantial. The Asian plays the nerd, the black man is the criminal, the black woman is angry, and the Middle Easterns, we're the terrorists. Some may say that this is only television and it has no lasting impact on society. But in reality, it only reinforces the underlying racism and prejudice of this nation. Look at all the roles granted to white actors. They play CIA agents, wizards, teachers, politicians, angsty teenagers, you name it. Anyone, quite literally anyone, could play an angsty teenager. Trust me, you're hearing it from the source. But it seems that Hollywood's default is white. Even non-white characters are being played by white actors. Look at Emma Stone playing a Chinese Hawaiian woman in Aloha, or the whitewashing of the entire cast and story of Stonewall. What message does this send to our youth? According to a study done by the University of Michigan, children today spend about 30 hours watching television, meaning next to their parents, TV is one of the most influential mediums in their lives. These children will grow up to be the future of our country, but we continue to set them up for failure at a young age. Children of color face two major problems when they watch television. Number one, lack of representation. When we turn on the TV and don't see people who look like us, we develop a sense of inferiority. We ask ourselves, why don't I look like that? The overwhelming whiteness of the popular media reinforces the idea of whiteness as an ideal, thus perpetuating the cycle of self-deprecation and a sense of inferiority. Number two, by portraying people of color using negative stereotypes, the media is perpetuating these pre-existing stereotypes in white communities regarding what these people are like, thus solidifying the racism in these areas. Now, this all may seem like a stretch. After all, look at all the fantastic movies about people of color coming out today. We have Get Out, we have Moonlight, Hidden Figures, Fences, Moana. Shouldn't this be enough? Well, the answer is no. This is only a handful of films in a field that continues to be dominated by white actors, producers, directors, and writers. Which brings me to my next point. White writers cannot do characters of color justice. A white person cannot begin to fathom the experiences and struggles of a person of color in this country. That'd be like me writing a story about a 50-year-old white man going on a golf trip in Florida. As a 16-year-old Middle Eastern girl from Skokie, Illinois, I have no way of realistically depicting this. But yet we constantly see the stories of people of color butchered by white writers. Now, in order to change this, we need to take action and push for young children today to get more involved in the arts. We need to diversify the industry, and that starts in our schools. Fine arts programs in many schools are desperately underfunded, and some schools don't even have these programs. The problem is, we don't see the arts as a priority, but rather as a luxury. And so oftentimes, only the privileged few have access to quality fine arts educations. I grew up in New York, and the middle school / elementary school I went to was constantly facing budget cuts and other financial issues. We had no fine arts program, we had no choir, no real art classes. All we had was a basketball team, and we weren't even that good. Thankfully, because of this, the friends I've stayed in contact with from the school don't even have the arts on their radar when it comes to choosing a future career. This is a problem within countless schools in neighborhoods of lower socioeconomic standing, and coincidentally, these neighborhoods consist of minorities. Thankfully, I moved to Skokie, Illinois, and now I go to a school with a phenomenal fine arts program. We put on 7 plays a year, 4 choir concerts, countless band, orchestra, dance shows, you name it. The fine arts program, specifically the theater program at my school, has led me to decide that I want to pursue a career in acting and playwriting. And I know dozens of people who want to pursue a career in film and television and broadcast journalism. And get this, they're not all white. This is something I never would have dreamed of at my old school. Imagine if every school in the country prioritized the arts, giving children of all backgrounds an opportunity to find a place for themselves in the media and make their voices heard. Looking ahead, this country would change drastically if we made a conscious effort to push for the diversification of the media, starting in our public schools. If today we are unable to properly accommodate for the 35% of our country that isn't white, how do we expect to do so in 30 years, when this seemingly small percentage has become the majority of our nation? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all 3 of you. And the one thing I did not do with the 2 other speakers is to make sure that I named one kin person to make sure they met them. And Elyse is interested in going into medicine, so I want to make sure Darshak Sanghavi here in the room, please make sure you meet Elyse if you haven't already. And for Yourtana, we need to make sure she meets Jeffrey Ernstoff. Okay? I thought we were going to have time for a Q&A, but we don't. We're really short on time, so in a few moments here, I'm going to excuse these ladies. But before they leave, I want to just make sure everyone here notices, for maybe the first time ever, we have 4 women sitting on the stage at Ken. Unfortunately, it's because the topic is next generation. Okay? But hey, that's all right. We don't give up, do we, Betsy? It's okay. We'll take it. We'll take it. Interesting. I heard a lot of messages here, the importance of social responsibility for all of us here in this room, and making sure that as we think about what we do in our daily lives, we're doing the right thing. The fact that competitiveness is great, but it can be counterproductive and unproductive, a very strong message from Elyse. The impact of pop culture on our social biases that we may or may not realize every day as we watch media, and the importance of fine arts and education. All very, very strong messages. I really appreciate that. And you know that it's a next generation conversation when someone says, I have friends who want to grow up to be Mozart or even Kanye West. Thank you, ladies, very much.